Hello, and in today's video we're going to talk about Béthorm, the Plane of Tékumel. So this is a role-playing game produced by Jeff D and Uni Games, and it's based on the setting that M.A.R. Barker created back, well, I guess in the 40s, and first came to our attention in 1975 in the form of the Petal Throne. And as you can see, it's a little softback book that allows you to play in the setting of Tékumel, which, if you're not used to, you might want to pick up one of the books. So this one is readily available, Book 1, The Man of Gold, and it's effectively a weird fantasy setting, but a bit like, I guess, The Dying Sun and other settings like that. It's set in the far, far future. So Tékumel is actually a colonised world that was part of the high-tech empire of humanity. But due to various reasons, it disappeared from our plane of existence and has now become sort of like a fantasy, Babylonian, Mayan sort of setting where technology is so high-tech it's effectively magic, and the actual people on the planet no longer know about their past. They just know that there's these weird devices that just work. But equally, there is also magic and gods. So as you can see, a lot of the stuff in here was originally produced by M.A.R. Barker, so he actually gets credited. And this is edition 1, October 2014. It's got a nice table of contents that's pretty comprehensive, to be honest. And as you can see, there's quite a few pages of that. We then get a little bit of an introduction with some lovely Jeff D artwork. So Tékumel, as it says here, was created in around 1940, but came to the attention of the world with effectively a reskin of Dungeons and Dragons, when in 1975 a very high-end game was published by TSR called Empire of the Petal Throne. Now, I can't remember the exact price, but I got a feeling it was like 3 to 4 times the price of D&D, so it was horrendously expensive. Had lovely colour artwork and maps and stuff, but by modern standards it is fairly basic. Now, you can get hold of it as a print-on-demand product, and that might be well worthwhile because there's not a huge amount of setting information in this book. There is probably enough to get playing, particularly if you have any awareness of Tékumel. For example, here we've got a timeline, so the Lost Age of Earth, the Time of Darkness, the Tsolyani period, the Bendalian period. Now, I'm probably mangling these names. There is actually a pronunciation guide because, a bit like Tolkien, this setting actually came about due to a linguistic project. So there is actually a way of pronouncing all this stuff, and in particular the little accents on the words are where you sort of stress the syllables. So the Engezvanalia period, I want to say, the Golden Age. This is the age that most of the current humans on Tékumel can vaguely know about due to some survival of information. That was followed by the Time of No Kings. Then we get to the Second Imperium, where the Talakotani dynasty begins, and that's the current royal family of the Petal Throne. And then in recent history, in 2347 AS, the emperor ascended to the throne, ended up with a bit of a bun fight with Baron Aud of Yankor, and then the emperor actually died in 2364. And then we're now in the current time frame where the huge civil war that kicked off due to the emperor dying is settling down. Rather weirdly, on page 13 we then get designer's introduction. Now, I actually feel this probably should have been nearer to the front, as should the description of the Pocket Universe system. And it's a very simple design. It uses D10s, but it doesn't use them as necessarily D10s. You actually roll 2 D10 and also potentially a D10 and also potentially a D100. So it is a bit weird, but I actually think it works quite well. Now, you take your attribute score, which is rated from 8 to 12, then you add a skill bonus, which is rated from 0 to 4, so your range is 8 to 16, and you need to roll under that on 2d10 effectively. And there are various modifiers. If you roll a double, that's either a critical success or a critical failure, depending on whether you pass or fail your roll. And then you do occasionally get to roll sort of D10 for, I guess, the level of success, and then occasionally also D100s as well. So what else do you need? Well, basically that's it. D10, bit of paper, a pencil. Talks about game mastering, talks about, setting up your campaign premise. So there's lots of ways of doing that. It does also talk about player character connections. It's very important to realise in Tékumel it's a very rigid sort of Indian caste style setting. So unlike your traditional medieval fantasy Europe setting, this is very much a Babylonia, India, Persia, so much more exotic and, dare I say, oriental style of gameplay. So the various ways of playing, obviously here, so are you a member of the army, the Azure Legion? Are you the heroes of the age? What sort of adventures are you going to do? Are you doing underworld, wilderness, court intrigue, military missions, other planar threats? Are you merchants? Are you involved in religion, inter-clan conflicts, because everyone belongs to a clan? Are you doing gambling, hunting, arena? They have like gladiatorial combats, the Hirakate arenas, I believe they're called. Are you involved in just the day-to-day bureaucracy, admin, solving mysteries and puzzles? We then get to the main game bit, obviously, which is character creation. So your physical appearance, are you an out-of-towner, are you a foreigner, are you non-human? There are various weird alien races that have been trapped on Tékumel along with the humans. Then we talk a little bit about cultural attitudes. We then talk about your clan. And that's my one criticism of these rules. All the information's there, but I'm not sure they've necessarily laid them out in the best order. So selecting a clan, we've got a huge amount of information here about imperial, high, medium and low clans. And obviously there's very high and very low chucked in there as well. So for example, if I wanted to be the Blue Kirtle, these are members that are devoted to Avanthe and her cohort Dilanala. These are gods, basically. Originally potters, winemakers and builders, but now include medium-level priests and administrators as well. They are based at the Bay Su and have clan houses throughout the Empire. So as you can see, lots of little detailed setting information buried in here. Maybe you're an out-of-town or foreign clan. Maybe you're a non-human clan. Obviously, once you sort of have an idea of your clan, you can then determine the wealth, contacts and prestige of your clan, because individuals don't necessarily have money. Money is based around the clan, and if you're clanless, then you're in all sorts of trouble. So family income, your personal wealth, contacts, prestige, out-of-town wealth, income, foreign wealth, income, etc., non-human. Then role-playing your status. So again, we get a little bit of a setting info dump talking about how it's very difficult to deal with people either higher or lower status than you. And in fact, if you're dealing with someone particularly higher status than you, you might actually talk to an intermediary, because it would be ignoble to deal with someone of the wrong status. And in this setting, to be noble or ignoble is a big deal. And if you're ignoble, you can actually literally get killed. Then we got some personal info here, so age, the calendar randomly appears here, talks about gender, and there's quite a modern attitude towards gender detailed in there. Then we get a load of personal names, so you can roll some dice. So you might roll a name of Chiekan, and then let's say Suon. So that could be you. Then you get your lineage name. And again, there's a whole thing. So you could then be of He Sakatel. So as you can hear, that the names are very odd. And as I say, I'm probably horribly mispronouncing them. So to check, I could check here. How should I pronounce all this weird stuff? So the accent marks. The accent mark over each Tsolyani word indicates which of the syllables is most heavily stressed. So therefore, Chatan is Cha-tan, not Cha-tan. Vowel sounds, foreign names. Now, if you want more information about this, there is lots of good stuff online, because there's obviously a foundation to look after the Tékumel legacy, and there's a very comprehensive introduction to the language, including teaching you how to do it. And it's things like, here is a black chair. Where is the black chair? And then you're meant to translate it. So if that really floats your boat, if you're really into the sort of the rich setting information, particularly with regard to language, then you can actually get off and teach yourself how to speak all this stuff and even write it. And I do remember in the original Petal Throne books, there was actually how to write it in the fancy runes that he created for the language as well. Obviously, we then get into marital status. Now, you can be married to multiple men and women, and it all gets very confusing. And like, you could refer to someone as your father who's not actually your biological father, but just a person who effectively counts as your father. So there's all sorts of weird and wonderful things like that. So here you go. A character is married. They can have anywhere up to 10, for example. And they can be anywhere from 20 years younger to 5 years older. And women are normally subservient to men unless they are, and I forgot the name now, Atrali or something. I can't remember the exact name now, but they can declare themselves to be equivalent to a man, and then they have all the rights of a man. So yeah, it's a very odd, weird setting. We then got religion, and we've got the gods of good and evil, although strictly speaking, they're not good and they're not evil. They're stability or change, so law and chaos, effectively. And there's quite a few. So we've got the 5 laws of stability, so the supreme principle of stability, the Lord of War, the Lord of Wisdom, the Mistress of Heaven, and the Lord of Excellent Dead. Then you've got the Lords of Change, so the supreme principle of change, Lord of Fire, Lord of Secrets, 5-headed Lord of Worms, the Green Lady of Fleshy Joys, and then you've also got these things called cohorts, which are lesser aspects of the gods. So there's 5 of each of those as well. So lots of weird, wonderful stuff then. There's also some foreign and non-human gods that aren't detailed here, but are detailed in other documents around Tékumel. We finally actually get to the attributes section of character creation. So you've got your physique, your deafness, your intellect, your willpower, your psychic ability, which normally is, I think, 2, but you can also upgrade it to 8 if you want to be a sorcerer. So you don't roll, you get attribute points. So all abilities start at 8 apart from Psyche that starts at 2. If you spend 1 point on Psyche, it immediately jumps to 8, and then you can spend extra points. And effectively, you can raise any of these abilities up to 12, I think. Anyway, there's rules there about how to do that. You then get your secondary characteristics. So if you've got a score of 12 in something, you might get a +2, and your value for your secondary bit might be 20. So your hit points, for example, if you have a 9 physical score, then you'll get 7 hit points. And that's based off this little table up in the top here. So you've got unarmed damage, initiative, move in, your magical aptitude. So you have to have a ritual of 10 to be pretty much able to do intelligence of 10 and a psychic score of 8 to basically do any of the magical stuff, really. You get starting experience, which is what you use to buy skills. You also get contacts, so you can create some contacts. Then you get personality traits, so you get a load of disadvantages and advantages, and there's quite a few listed here. Let's just grab one. So rational. The character tends to think rationally, gaining a bonus of +1 on all checks requiring rigorous reasoning. This advantage may only be taken once. Then, like secret identity, maybe you get a stipend, so you actually have some personal wealth. It then talks about the racial traits. So you've got the dragon warriors, which are huge humans, effectively, the sea people. Then you've got the weird, wonderful, often 6-legged alien creatures. So you've got the nobbled ones, the seafarers, the swamp folk, the furred flyers, the pygmy folk, the forest dwellers, the listeners, the demon warriors, the gnomes, and the cold dwellers. So yeah, there's all sorts of things. So the Pechoi, the listeners, full description on page 202, but they are slightly more agile, +1 deafness. They have better hearing, bit more toughness. They sense living things. They get a bit of psychic bonus. They have a phobia of water that's 2 foot deep or more. They're very vengeful. If you kill a Pechoi, then they come for you, basically, and they have a quirk of aesthet. So there you go. Then we get huge amount of skills here. So the skill availability, clan training, temple education, military training, life skills, skill status. So, for example, acrobatics is based on deft. You're -4 if you're trying to do an acrobatics thing without the skill, and the status is low. So, this basically means if you're a imperial family member, why are you having in acrobatics? It doesn't make sense. So as you can see, there's loads and loads of description in here for the various bits. So melee, so this skill improves a character's ability to hit and parry in melee. Oratory, so you're good at speaking. So there's quite a lot of stuff here. Then we get a little bit about language and contacts chucked in here. Contacts, as you see, is very important. So page 50, 51. Then we get to equipment, and it talks about money here. Now, money is a gold coin called a katar, I believe it is. And then silver coins are halash, and then a qugal, which is the copper coin. So you've got a gold piece, a silver piece, and a copper piece. And metal is really rare on this planet, and most weapons are actually made from a cheln, I think it's called, beast. And it's basically a 6-legged sort of rhinoceros, and you can peel off some of the skin, treat it, and it becomes like as hard as sort of iron. So here you go, you've got ill-fitting armour, shields. You can actually get copper or steel shields. They'd be very, very expensive because, as I say, weapons quite rare. Get equipment and clothing, quite a lot about clothing, surprisingly. Jewellery, also very important. Gems, food, meals, beverages, narcotics, poisons, quite a few of those. Antidotes to poisons, room rental, building construction, transport, livestock, and of course slaves. Rather controversially, this setting features slaves, and that's basically because it's based on historical cultures. But the slaves are normally well treated in this setting, you'll be pleased to hear. But there you go. So you can buy your slaves, and there's prices there. Entertainment, magic, technology, non-player characters, phobias, and then we get into turn sequence and combat, and are you going to use grid movement, running, swimming, all your standard set of rules, how to modify your skills, a whole load of stuff on there. Clan support, perception, lockpicking, luck, and a bit more about combat. Quite a lot here, as you can see. Hazards, asphyxiation, poison, fire, healing. Very important with all that stuff. Then a nice bit about sorcery. We get a load of spells listed here. So, as you can see, there's quite a lot of stuff going on with the spell casting. And we've got various spells based on various temples. And it's just page after page after page of all this. Putrefaction, Rigid Noble Passage, the Chaos Trendle. Then we get to some outdoor encounters, which here. So on page 155, we get a whole load of outdoor encounters. There's loads of information in here. So it's also then takes us into creature description. So if you want to know a little bit more about the nobbled ones, so tells you all about them. And as you can see, they're these weird sort of hard-shelled head with I think 3 or 4 faces. So they're very hard to surprise. And there's just a whole load of information plus some nice artwork, of course, because a lot of these creatures are weird. But this setting does include some human, Earth, I should say, based critters as well. So you've got dogs and cats and things which were brought by the humans way back when. But a lot of the stuff, as I say, is multiple limbs with quite often 6 limbs in total. And as you see, there's a huge amount of information. We then get into treasure. Now, one of the kind of key treasure items of this setting are things called eyes, which are ancient technology, sort of Aris I guess, magical wands almost, and there are some known specific eyes, but here you go. I'm talking about eyes here. So Tékumel abounds with devices that have survived from the ancient glorious days of high technology. Most of these have delicate parts and were made of perishable substances and are therefore useless. Eyes, small, round, eye-shaped, non-metallic devices with an iris on one side and a firing stud on the other, are the commonest of these ancient devices which have survived. And there's all sorts of things. So you've got a load of eyes here which were originally described way back in 1975. You've also got weird amulets, and then you've got your various other magical items listed here. So it's all very typically fantasy role-playing game, really. So we've got special weapons and swords with egos and stuff. We then get to character advancement, and then we've got some further reading and key to a map of Katali, and then the map of Katali, where it's located in the world, and then a nice big view of the Empire of Tsolyani, and it's one of the 5 empires of the world. We then got a load of sheets, and that's it. So what do I think of this product? Well, I think it's got at its core a really basic set of rules, and it's obviously set in the wonderful setting of Tékumel. But as a product for somebody who's never really played in Tékumel, I think it could do with a bit more information. In addition, although it's a really basic set of rules, it's got page after page of lots of bits and pieces that you need to be aware of, and it can be all overwhelming. It's then got, obviously, like a lot of fantasy products, page after page of magic items and monsters and spells that make this a really big, thick, intimidating book. And I don't think it's actually that hard to get into in reality, because as I say, the basic rules are pretty simple. So it's 251 pages, but really a lot of the rules probably could be in these first few pages here. But because of the way they've chosen to lay it out, I think it makes this a harder product to get into than it should be. Now, I'm going to compare this to other games set in the Tékumel world, in particular Empire of the Petal Throne. So look for videos in the future talking about that. But my overall impression of this is, well, obviously you can actually physically buy it still at a fairly reasonable price, and the basic rules seem pretty good. And I think once you've sort of got your head around how this actually works, it's going to be pretty simple. I think it could do with a bit of a revision to maybe make the rules flow a bit better. And I know you want to hit people with a bit of setting information, but I actually think for me these days, I want to learn how to play the game, and then a bit later on, I want to find out about my settings. So I'd rather I had maybe a 1-page introduction to Tékumel and then like see page 100 for more information, then have a nice set of basic rules, and then have a little breakout bit to say, well, here's some more detail about spells, here's a more detailed bit about combat. So overall, I'll give this provisional thumbs up. I do actually own the PDF from backing this product as a Kickstarter, and I've only recently just acquired this physical version of the rules because, well, I just couldn't afford it till this point, or justify it. But I'm really interested in Tékumel, so I'm looking forward to reading the Man of Gold, which I ordered at the same time as this rulebook. And there are meant to be multiple books, but this is really the only one that's readily available. And there are several other books in the work. And let's see, this was a 2015 version of this particular book, but I think it first came out in the 80s. And it's a bit of a romp touring all around the place. Now, officially it's a $19 book from the Tékumel Foundation, and there is a cheaper, in theory, version on Kindle, but they happen to have a sale going on at the time I bought this, so I chose to buy this because I think it was like 20p more than buying the Kindle version. And this would be a really good way to get you into the setting, and to be honest, if you don't particularly like the look of these rules, if you think that they're too basic or they're not basic enough, you could potentially buy the Man of Gold. You could then go onto the web page and learn more about the setting and just use your own rules. And I must admit, I am currently looking at trying to port this set into the drama system, although my modified version of the drama system, because I think it's a really good setting, lots of rich information. There is enough in this product to make it viable to just buy this, but I would have liked a little bit more setting information in the book. And it's sort of there, but it's scattered in amongst the rules, apart from that huge data dump right at the start where we trace the history of Tékumel. But really, do I care about stuff the players don't really know? Possibly not. So, yeah, I think Jeff D did a pretty good job. He's got his lovely illustrations in here, of course, which always helps. And yeah, I would say it's definitely worth checking out. And as I say, in particular, because it's one of the few products that is actually officially still in print, it's definitely worthwhile picking up if you're a fan of Tékumel. And in particular, if you like the Uni Games rule set, well, I think you're going to enjoy a bit of Béthorm. Anyway, I think that will do for now. As I say, keep an eye out for more Tékumel goodness. Anyway, till the next video, happy gaming.